What is up, YouTube? It's the Jack Crypto Guy. I want to give you guys a very quick, time-sensitive update with what I think is going to happen with the crypto market, specifically with the rate cut announcement that's going to be happening in about 4 hours. Now, last time they cut interest rates, this was back in last September, and it was a surprise 50 cut. So I think that 25 is pretty much baked in right now. I think that that's what most investors are anticipating. However, I wouldn't rule out that they're going to do a surprise 50 cut, off the interest rates. But I do think that short term, I think that it's a mixed bag of what people think is going to happen. I personally am in the camp that there might be a lot of de-risking going on, because typically whenever they cut interest rates, usually investors, they see this as a long-term bullish catalyst because it means that money's going to be cheaper and they're going to let inflation run a little bit hot. But I think that the people that are already in the markets, they wonder, what is going on under the hood? What is so bad to where we have to cut? Because typically speaking, the Fed does not cut when we're in a strong market, frankly speaking. And we've had really bad jobs reports and all that kind of stuff. So I do think that that's going to offer some sort of reasoning and rationale as to whatever decision that they end up making. And I just think that short term, it's going to be really worthwhile to either mitigate your risk or have some sort of hedge going into this, because I think that, and it's kind of weird because I think that a lot of crypto investors, they all think that the price is just going to go down, which I am in that camp as well. But, the market does surprise and humble ultimately everybody. And I think if you're somebody that is just, a long-term investor, then you probably don't need to worry about this. If you're a short-term investor and perhaps you're over-leveraged or whatever the case may be, I would just really have a lot of caution going into this, because this is going to be very volatile. And it's not so much in the interest rate cut, but it's also going to be in the speech that Jerome Powell says. And whatever he says is going to be it's going to have a very sensitive effect on the market. And what I mean by sensitive is, depending on if he comes off as hawkish or dovish, it's really going to move the market. And another thing that's worth mentioning, if you're a short-term trader, whenever you see the price on the announcement fluctuate, it typically is going to do the opposite short term. So what I mean by this is, let's just say that, the interest rate is announced and it's either like a 50 or a 25 cut. Probably what's going to happen is you're going to see the market go super crazy, and the market's probably going to rally really quick. And that's going to make a lot of investors think that the market's just going to go sky high. So that's going to cause a lot of FOMO. And what typically happens shortly after that, whenever Jerome Powell starts speaking, or shortly after the whole meeting, the market tends to just go down in the opposite direction, because the market makers see that there's so much liquidity that they can grab at the bottom. And so they pretty much feed off of the investors. So I think that in the inverse, if you see a huge dump, then I wouldn't be too concerned, but there's always going to be an opposite trade. So if the market goes down, it's going to scare investors and they're going to want to sell, and they're going to try to de-risk, and then they may send the market higher. So I really would not suggest trading and getting chopped up in this. I think that if you're in spots and you have quality altcoins and Bitcoin and whatever the case may be, maybe you're in stocks, I would just, this is not financial advice, but I would just kind of stay the course and don't really let the noise short term, defer you from your goals. So that's just kind of what I think is going to go on. I personally think that we're going to get a 25 interest cut rate. That's just my personal opinion. I think that short term the market's going to go down, and I think we're going to rally pretty hard into the fourth quarter of this year, and then perhaps a little bit into 2026. But that's all to be determined. And if you want daily updates like this, then feel free to subscribe and ask me any crypto questions. I've been in this space since 2016, and I'm trying to help you guys make as much money as possible.